Alright everybody, today we are going to be covering the Motion tab in Snap. It is up here in the top left, if you will draw your attention here. It says Motion, and here are all of our blocks. Now if you would like to, make the blocks bigger so they will be easier to see, up here, right here up top, the little cog wheel, if you click that once, and then go down to the third option, or excuse me, the second option. It says Zoom Blocks. If you click that, it will give you an option. You can drag this little thing right here, this little slider, or you can enter in a number just manually with your keyboard, or you can click this little arrow right here and it will tell you normal, demo, presentation, big, something like that. So to be able, for any of you are having problems seeing the blocks, I'm going to set it to, I guess, demo size, so I can, so I'll still have room. I'll make it a little bigger for us. Well, let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's see, 12.45. Let's try 5. Okay, there we go. Alright, as we can see over here, the blocks are bigger now. So, first things first, we need a control block. Even though we're going over motion, we still need a control block to make things happen. So over here in control, the little control tab up here top left, click that once, and we see we have a when flag clicked, and that flag, if you'll follow my mouse, is over here in the top right. So that means when this button right here is pushed, something will happen. But since I don't want to, take my mouse all the way over there, I'm going to save time and choose the when space key is pressed. So that means just your space bar. If you click on this little down arrow right here, you can see you have most of the keys on your keyboard. If you'd like to select one of those, it doesn't matter. I am going to keep it on space. Alright, so if we go back to our Motion tab here in the top left, let's start with our first block. So our first block says move 10 steps, and what this does is our sprite over here, this little arrow looking dude, he is called a sprite. That is just a visual representation, and what that's saying is when the space key is pressed, move our sprite over here 10 steps. So if we press the space bar, I don't know if you can hear me tapping it, but nothing is happening. So make sure for all your programs you snap them together, just like the name of this program. So once they are snapped, if we press our space key, if you look over here to our sprite, right here, when the space key is pressed, it will move in 10 increments. And if your guy gets too far over, you can drag him back. And I think if he goes off screen, if you lose him, if he goes off the screen and you lose him, if you right click your mouse, the right click, in this first option here, show, if we click that, it'll pop him back onto the screen so we can see him. So that's nifty to know. And we see in our move tab right here, or move block, if we click that once, it'll turn blue, and you can enter in any number you would like. So if I put 50, and then click here in the gray outside, so it'll stop. See how there's like a little tab cursor? I forget what it's called, but if you click out here to make sure that doesn't pop up, and now if we hit our space key bar, if we look at our sprite, he's moving a little further than 10 steps. Alright, so that is our move block. Now to get rid of a block, you just left click it, hold on to the left click, don't let go, and then drag it And so now that won't be a part of our program. See, if I press the spacebar, nothing happens. But if you would like to get rid of this block, you can right-click the block. Right-click your mouse just once. Just tap it. And we see it says delete right here. And if we click delete, it will delete the block. But another way to do it, which is sometimes easier in my opinion, is if you left-click this block and drag it. Make sure you're holding on to the left-click button. Let's drag it over here to where we got it. And if we let go of the left-click, it'll disappear. All right. So our next tab in our motion, or our next block in our motion tab, excuse me, is turn clockwise 15 degrees. If we plug that into our control block, when we press our spacebar or whatever button you have it set as, we will notice over here that our sprite will turn clockwise 15 degrees. And this works the same way as with the move block. If you click here where it says 15 degrees, just hit backspace to delete that. We can enter in our old number, so I'll put 90, and make sure you click back out here. And now if we press our spacebar, or if we press our key, whatever key you have it set as, our sprite is turning 90 degrees now. Alright, so let's get rid of this block. Once again, if you left click, hold the left click, don't let go of it, and drag it over here, and let go, it'll delete it for you. Alright, our next block is turn counterclockwise 15 degrees. So as you can probably notice, this is very, very, very similar to the previous block we just had. So let's plug it in there, and if we look at our sprite here, I'll press the space key, he is turning counterclockwise now. And this works the same way as the previous block. If you click inside, we can enter in our own number, so I'll put 45, and when you hit the space bar, now he is turning counterclockwise 45 degrees. Alright, so let's get rid of this block. Alright, our next block over here on the left says point in direction 90. We see we have a little arrow, down arrow, and this tells us this is the coordinate plane. So 90 is right, so let's try that out first. It says point in direction 90. We plug that in there. We look at our guy. It looks like he's already pointing 90. Alright. And so if we choose over here in the down arrow, if we choose negative 90, that should be left. And now when we press our spacebar, see our sprite turned left, or negative 90 degrees. Alright, if we press our down arrow again and select 0, which is up. Now if we look at our sprite, when we press the space key, you'll face up. Now let's go back to our point in direction block and click the down arrow and choose the last option, which is 180, which is down. And now if we look at our sprite, press the space key, you'll face down. And as with the other blocks, if you click inside here, we see now that we have our cursor. Hit backspace to get rid of it. And now we can enter in our own number, like 67. You can enter in any number you'd like. And now if we look at our sprite, when we press the space key, you will face 67 degrees, I guess. Alright, now let's go to our next block, which is point towards blank. Alright, so if we click the down arrow here, the only option it gives us is mouse pointer. So it says when space key is pressed, point towards mouse pointer. Now if you look at my mouse, see how it's right here? If I press the space bar, our sprite faces right towards the mouse pointer. So if I move it over here and press the space bar, points right to it. No matter where we are on the screen, it will follow it. We press the space bar. Alright, let's look at our next block. So this says, our next block says go to X position 0 and Y position 0. So if we try that out, our sprite should go to X coordinate 0 and X coordinate Y when we press the spacebar, which is right in the middle. Now, if you would like to, if you don't just magically know where the X and Y positions are on here, over here in the main screen, if you click, I do believe, sensing, here we go. If you click on the sensing tab up here, my battery. If you click up here in the sensing tab on the top left, you will see right here mouse X and mouse Y, and you'll see these little buttons next to it. If you click these buttons, you'll notice now over here in our little area that it is displaying our current X and Y position of the mouse. So I'm going to switch back to our motion block or tab over here on the left. So if you want your mouse or if you want your sprite to go, let's say right here, if you hold your mouse there, you see that it is negative 133 for the X and negative 100 for the Y. So if we enter that in over here in our go-to block, so was it 1 negative? Yeah, negative 133. So negative 133. And if we just press the tab button, it'll go over to the Y, or you can just click in it if you'd like and enter negative 100. Now when we press the space bar, if we look over here at our mouse, we press space bar, it moved right there. And you don't have to use these coordinates. You can just enter in whatever you'd like. So if I put 50 for X and left negative 100 for Y and then press the space bar, we can see that he moved, our sprite moved 50. Alright. And if we go back to our sensing tab up here in the top left, if you don't want if you do not want these anymore, just click the check marks next to it. You'll get rid of them. Alright, let's get rid of our go-to block. And now back to our motion tab here in the top left. Alright, our next block is glide 1 second or seconds to X position 0 and Y position 0. So what this says is, when the space key is pressed, we want to move our sprite to X position 0 and X position Y, and we want to do that in 1 second. So if we press spacebar and look over here at our sprite will smoothly glide over a 1 second period to the 0 and the X, to the X0 and XY position. Now we can change. Let's move our sprite over here so we can notice it. So our sprite's right here. Now if we change glide in our tab, if we change that to 5 seconds and leave the rest the same, so X is 0, Y is 0, and we'll get there in 5 seconds. If we look at our sprite, we press the spacebar, so it's going to the same X and Y position, but it's just taking longer to get there, so 5 seconds. And you can change that to whatever you'd like. So if we put, for glide here, for seconds, if we put 0.5, so less than 1 second and press space. See, it moves there a lot faster. Likewise, we can put for X, let's put 100, and Y we can put something like -42. It can be whatever. And if we press the space bar, we notice that our mouse will move to that position. Alright, let's get rid of our glide block here. Alright, we see we have change X by 10, and all that does is changes our sprite's X position by whatever number you have it set as. So it's 10 right now, so if we press our spacebar, you can see our X changes by 10, which is almost like the step blocks right here. And we see we can set this to 50 if we would like, or any number. And so if we press the space bar now, we notice our sprite moves by 50. And how this well, it should be used in conjunction with the change Y by. But how this is different from move steps is steps will only move in the direction that you're. So if let's test this out. So if we get our move steps block and see how our sprite is facing at like this angle right here. If we press spacebar now, move 10 steps, he'll go in that direction. But if you want to make your sprite just move up and down like on the coordinate plane, that's what you would use to change X and change Y by. So let's get our change X by 50 block and get rid of it. Our next block over here on the left is set X to 0. If you've figured out by now, we can change this 0 to anything we want. But all that does is when we press the space bar, our X position of our sprite will be set to 0. Let's get rid of this block. And here's the change Y by 10. Very similar to change X by 10. And all that does is when the space bar is pressed, it will change our sprite's Y position by 10 units. And let's get our set Y to block, or set Y to 0 block. And all that does is make our Y position of our sprite set to 0. Alright, our next block is if on edge. Oops, this block's over here. If on edge, bounce. This block really doesn't do anything unless is used with another block. So let's just plug this in right here, and we are going to use the glide block because that'll let us see what's going on. So it says glide 1 second to X0 and Y0. So if on edge bounce, this right here of our screen, this is the edge, or the edges. Just this white square right here. These are the edges. So I'm going to go to our sensing tab up here in the top left and choose make our mouse X and mouse Y position pop up, and I want our sprite to head this direction, just overly do it just to demonstrate this. So it says our mouse X is -662, so let's put that here in our tab. So -662, and our Y is we can say -47. So what this should do is when our space key is pressed, our sprite is going to try and come over here in this area, our X and Y area. But since we have this if on edge bounce, it should bounce off this edge. So let's hit the space bar and see what happens. let's switch these up. Show a sprite. Alright. See, it's bouncing back now. So our if on edge actually needs to be below the glide. So to change that position, if you click on the top block, it'll move both of them. But if you click on the bottom block, it'll detach them. So let's make sure that if on edge bounce is on the bottom. So we run that, it'll quote unquote bounce it back. See, if we get rid of if on edge bounce, if it's not a part of the program anymore, if we hit space, then you notice our sprite does not pop back up. Let's right click here and show sprite. Let's drag it right here. But if we attach if on edge bounce, now we'll notice over here when our sprite moves off the screen, he bounces back. So that's a way, that could be a way where you won't have to right click the sprite and show each time if you don't want to. Alright, so let's get rid of these blocks right here. So just click the top one, left click, hold it, drag it over here. If we go to our motion tab, alright, so the three blocks, or they're not blocks really, they're more like a variable. Or yeah, I guess that's the right word. We have X position, Y position, and direction. And we notice that it has these squares right here where you can click the buttons, or you can click it to make something show up. So I'm going to, just so things do not get cluttered, I'm going to go up to Sensing, our Sensing tab, click that, and I'm going to make the mouse X and mouse Y position go away. Alright, now I'm going to go back to our Motion tab. Now I'm going to go back to our X position, Y position, and direction buttons. So if I click this, click the little boxes, we see that it shows our sprite positions and what directions they're facing in. So if we move our mouse or our sprite, you'll notice that the X position and Y position of it changes. And the direction is the direction it is facing. So how we can use these, so let's say we get our point in direction 90 block. We can get the direction variable. If we left click and drag it up here to 90, put it there. It plugs in, but if you change the direction, it'll change it there. Alrighty, so that is all of the blocks in the motion tab in Snap.